Hey guys, what's one of the biggest problems with Christians today? Sometimes there's more preaching than practicing going on. Sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's unpack it. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm Pastor Caleb, and this is the Offbeat Outlook. This is the channel that I want to bring to you that presents you with biblical and cultural information so that you could look at life through new lenses. Today we're going to discuss 3 things to help us practice what we preach. In the Christian world, I've seen a lot of people say they don't want to go to church, they don't want to be saved, they don't want to believe in God because then they're going to be just like the hypocrites down the road. So today we're going to talk about 3 things that helps us as Christians practice what we preach. That we're not just telling people to live a certain way or do certain things in order to obtain salvation, but that things that we could do as Christians to help others, lead others to Jesus Christ. So thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate you all for tuning in. So the first thing that I want to look at is, in order to be better at practicing what we preach, we've got to understand not everybody has a worldview or views life just like we do. So the first key in becoming better to help us in practicing what we preach is learning that your views is not the view of everyone. This is very important because as we share our faith and as you share your faith with your friends, with your neighbors, with your family, they may not share that same viewpoint. You see, God created us as individuals. Therefore, we don't think and view things the same way. And the fact is, people have a right to refuse our views. That's fine. So pushing our beliefs on them instead of loving them and just sharing the gospel with them, trying to force our political views, our religious views, our traditional views, the only thing we really should be doing is loving them and sharing the good news of the gospel with them. In Matthew 22, 38 through 40, a man came to Jesus and said, trying to tempt Jesus and say, what's the greatest law out of all the 600 and some laws that the Bible has? Jesus told him, he said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, body, and strength. And then he said, thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 hang the law and the prophets. So if we're going to be better at practicing what we're preaching, the first thing we're going to have to do is learn that not everybody thinks just like us. The second thing that we're going to have to do is learn to listen. See, Christians struggle. I struggle with this. When I share my view and someone argues, it is so easy to get defensive. It is so easy to get angry. It's so easy to try to push and cram my beliefs down their throat. But that's not what God calls us to do. He calls us to learn that our viewpoint isn't the same view as others, but he calls us to love one another. And if we love one another, we're going to listen. We're going to learn to listen. When met with resistance against our belief, instead of becoming aggressive and defensive and failing to hear why they believe what they hear, we miss out a great chance of loving them. Loving others is what God calls us to do, regardless of beliefs. And this will cause us to listen to them. So instead of shutting them out, getting defensive, my friend, today, the next time you share your faith, I encourage you, if you're going to practice what you preach, you've got to learn that your viewpoint is not the only viewpoint in the world, that others have different viewpoints, but also learn to listen because that's part of love. Third, you've got to learn to let go. Our duty is not to save people. Our duty as Christians is to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with the world. And so when we do this, and if people if they don't put their faith and their hope and their trust in Jesus Christ, we often feel like we have failed. We haven't. We've got to learn that there's 3 parts that happen in salvation. When somebody does their part to share the good news of the gospel, the person has their part to do when they hear the gospel. God has his part to do in convicting that soul. And if you don't know what convicting means, tune in to my Christianese episode 2, talking about conviction. and understanding what conviction is. So we've got to learn to let go. Our duty isn't to force others to believe the way we do. Our duty is to share the gospel. If people continue to refuse us, let go. Let go of thinking you failed. Let go of thinking that you haven't done your duty. If you shared the gospel of God and the good news of Jesus Christ with your friends, with your family, and they've refused, learn to let go. Continue loving them, continue listening to them, but also continue sharing the gospel with them. This world doesn't need another political view, a political religious view shoved down their throat. They need to see the love of Christ. And that can come from you, my friend. If we will just learn those 3 things of how to help us practice what we preach. So today, as we get ready for our coffee break here on the Offbeat Outlook, I hope that you'll think about how to better practice what you preach. On today's Offbeat Outlook coffee break, I am drinking again the Dynamite Roasting. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. You can follow the link below. Check out the Dynamite Roasting Company. Man, they make some good coffee. I'm drinking their dark roast, Cephalcar Clementia. And today I'm drinking a 23 gram to 400 gram ratio of coffee to water. A 1 gram of coffee to 17 grams of water ratio. I used the pour-over method with a Hario V60 in the electric gooseneck kettle over 185 degree Fahrenheit temperature, medium fine ground coffee, and made another stout cup of coffee, but a good cup of coffee. This coffee, in order to make this, I poured the first 100 grams of coffee after measuring it out, after doing all that, after pouring 100 milliliters or 100 grams of coffee over 30 seconds and waited 30 seconds. Let that set, let that drip. Repeated that process 3 more times for a total of 400 grams of coffee or 400 mLs of coffee. Again, strong cup of coffee, fairly bitter, but it's a good cup. And I hope that if you've got any recipes of coffee that you enjoy, any different type, again, I'm a pour-over type guy, but I'm looking to expand one of these days into French press and some other methods of coffee. If you have any recipes that you really enjoy, please put them in the comments, and I hope that it'll be that I could even share your recipe over the Offbeat Outlook coffee break, and we'll share it with others. If you really enjoy it, put it down in the comments below. Just a quick recap. Why is it important to be better at practicing what we preach? Because if we're going to reach people for Christ, if we're going to see souls saved, if we want to see sinners come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, we've got to become better at practicing what we preach. Not just shoving and cramming our beliefs down others' throats, but loving them to Jesus. How do we do that? We do that by learning that your view is not the only view out there. And by understanding that, we realize that they need to hear the good news. Not just to be forced to believe something, but just to hear the good news. Secondly, we need to learn to listen. Listen to their view. Why do they believe that? Why did they grow up having that understanding? What persuaded them to believe what they believe? Get to know them. Listen to them. Love them. Amen. And then, lastly, learn to let go when people don't do what you think they should do. People are going to make their own choices. And if they do the things that, we try to persuade them not to do, that's not our fault. If you've shared the gospel and your friends, your families, if they continue on in the way that you're trying to help bring them from, my friend, it's not your fault. Just continue to share the gospel. Continue to practice what you preach. Again, I'm Pastor Caleb. Thank you for tuning in to the Offbeat Outlook, where we provide biblical and cultural information so that you can have the chance to look through new lenses at your life. I hope that you'll hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified of all new content, and we hope to be a blessing to you. Share with your friends, anybody that you know that enjoys theological discussion, talking Bible, talking culture, and even sometimes talking politics. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hope you have a wonderful day.